and welcome to our webinar, Trust Law, an Introduction to Legal Pro Bono. And Trust Law has been a long-time Taproot partner, and we're always thrilled when they join us and talk about all of the free services available to our nonprofit community. And Trust Law is basically a part of Thomson Reuters. So my name is Samina Usmani. I'm the content manager here at Taproot. And before we begin, just a few logistical notes. All attendees will be muted, so please ask your questions in the chat box. And go ahead and introduce yourself and your organization in the chat right now. I see we have some folks already. Robert Simpson, great. And please add your LinkedIn as well if you'd like. And this webinar is being recorded. We will share the recording in an email later today. And as you can see, we have turned on closed captioning, but you do have the option to turn them off for yourself. Basically, you go to the right sidebar next to the AV pod, you click on the gear icon, and you can toggle off the turn on captions. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Livia Fry. Livia is Trust Law's Program Officer for North America and the Caribbean, working to develop Trust Law's relationships with their social enterprise, nonprofit, and legal members across the region. And prior to joining Trust Law, Livia worked for Immigrant Justice Corps and the Open Society Foundations. And I'd like to hand it over to Livia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Samina, and thank you to Taproot for once again inviting us back to present this wonderful event to your community, and to everybody for joining. I'm really, really excited to be able to talk with you and connect with you today, and hopefully tell you some helpful information about Trust Law and how we can help your amazing, impactful organizations and help you think about what some of your legal needs might be in the short term, midterm, and even the long term. So just really quickly, as Samina said, my name is Livia Fry. I am Trust Law's Program Officer for North America and the Caribbean. My pronouns are she, her, and in front of you, we have a brief agenda for our call today. I'll talk to you a little bit about the Thomson Reuters Foundation and the Trust Law program more broadly. Then we'll go through a process that we have coined a legal health check that will ask some key questions to get you thinking about what your organization's legal needs might be and how you might be able to utilize the Trust Law service to meet those legal needs. We'll talk to you about how to access pro bono support via Trust Law. And finally, we will absolutely hold some times for a question and answer session at the end. And I'll also be providing you my email address, and you'll be able to contact me after if you have more detailed questions, or if you would like to follow up and chat about joining the Trust Law network if you're not already a member. So with that, let's dive in, and I'm just going to toggle to our next slide here. So Thomson Reuters, the foundation, is the charitable arm of Thomson Reuters, the corporation. They are our main funder, and we are registered as a charity in both England and the United States, but our network really is global. And what we really think our niche and our value add to the social justice, human rights, media freedom, and general nonprofit and social enterprise community is that we're able to leverage the reach and the expertise and the reputation of the Thomson Reuters Corporation and use it to drive forward positive social change while also informing and connecting really impactful change makers. So with that, let's dive into the presentation itself, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about our focus areas. So the Thomson Reuters Foundation as a whole focuses on three key pillars, the first of which is media freedom, the second of which is inclusive economies, and the third of which is human rights, which is our broadest pillar. And together, those make up the core and the focus of all of our work. Sorry, just having a little trouble toggling to the next slide. There we go. And if at any time you can't see anything, or if the presentation isn't loading for you, please just pop it in the chat and we will be happy to troubleshoot. So the Thomson Reuters Foundation focuses on those three key pillars of media freedom, inclusive economies, and human rights through a number of programs, including support and capacity building to journalists, actually employing journalists to report very underreported news or very topical news. We have an institute for the study of journalism that we support. We also really like to take advantage of our convening power to bring together change makers and people who are really driving that positive social impact. And one of the key ways we do that is through our annual Trust Conference. And of course, what we're going to focus on today is our TrustLaw program. And what we do here in TrustLaw is we work with a network of the world's best law firms to help nonprofit organizations, NGOs, and social enterprises, which we define as a for-profit entity that reinvests at least 51% of its profits into a social or environmental mission, to impact really high quality, the highest quality legal support pro bono that you might otherwise not have as much access to. And that through that legal support, through that pro bono legal support, we hope that we are able to support your impact and your mission and kind of free you up to really focus on your mission and your work and drive your goals forward. So TrustLaw, broadly speaking, can connect you with pro bono legal counsel for work that falls into two main buckets or categories. The first of which is legal advice, and we refer to this as advisory support or transactional support. It makes up the majority of legal work that we support, and it kind of, as I like to say, comprises what we think of lawyers doing on a day-to-day basis. So they can help you with requests for advice around intellectual property issues, corporate law, a lot of contract reviews. If you have certain questions about finance or organizational structure, questions about employment law and HR policy, broadly speaking, that's what our legal advice category is here to help you with. All of those administrative and governance questions that go to the day-to-day or overall administration of your organization that, if you were to have to employ counsel for would be quite costly. So we hoped that we can at least take some of that burden off of you and again, free you up to focus on your social mission and your goals and really driving your impact forward. And then that second bucket is what we call legal research. And what we're able to do here is connect you with pro bono legal support to help you dive into a specific legal topic in whatever area you're working on to either inform your internal working processes or to develop an external resource that you can make available to your communities, your stakeholders, or the public at large on whatever area that you focus on. So some examples of that, as you see, are modern slavery, climate, women's rights, refugee rights, LGBTQ plus rights, and a whole host of others. And we'll get into a little bit more about the types of legal research projects that we have traditionally supported and that we're very well placed to support. And we'll give you a few examples and case studies of those a little bit further along in the presentation. So just some stats on our impact to give you an idea of our reach and our ability to maybe help you out. We are a truly global network. We are on every continent except Antarctica. We maintain a network of over 1,000 law firms, in-house counsel teams, and legal partners around the world. And we have a network of 5,500, maybe a little bit more by now, nonprofit organizations and social enterprises. Apologies. And we're very proud of the fact and very happy that we have been able over the years to provide a cumulative total of $225 million worth of pro bono support if you're measuring by hours. And many of those have been cross-border research programs. As you can see, it's over 260 of them. And we just are looking forward to continuing to grow our network and hopefully to be able to provide a lot of that support to those of you who are here right now. So right now we're going to shift, and again, we will absolutely have time to answer any questions you might have about that first portion of the presentation about trust law and Thomson Reuters in general at the end. But right now we're going to shift and we're going to go through what we call a legal health check, where we're going to focus on different areas of legal support that we provide, and we're going to ask a few key questions to get you thinking again about what your organization's legal needs might be right now or a little bit in the future. And if any of these resonate with you and you think you'd like to follow up with us because you think you could benefit from legal advice and pro bono support in one or more of these areas, again, we will be providing my contact information as well as general trust law contact information, and you'll be able to get in touch with us, and we would love to talk to you more about that. So again, our legal health check just kind of helps you assess the state of your organization and your potential legal health needs. And we actually do also have a full form and a full PDF document where you'll be able to read about these questions in more detail. And Samina will very helpfully be circulating that after the conclusion of the presentation. And again, please feel free to have a read through. And if you would like to discuss further after doing that, please go ahead and just shoot us an email. I'm sorry, I am just going to pause for a moment because I see somebody in the chat is saying you don't see it. So can I just get a quick sense check in the chat of if people can see the presentation or not? And if not, maybe Samina, you can help me troubleshoot. Okay, I'm seeing that people can see it.
Yes, sorry, the first message was regarding closed captioning. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, you're good. Okay.
Sorry. All right. Thank you. And thank you everybody in the chat who responded. I'm glad you're able to see the presentation because I didn't know how I was going to fix it. So the first kind of set of legal questions we're going to look at really speaks to the overall structuring and governance of organizations. And what we mean by this is organizations often start out with a particular legal structure or a particular administrative structure. For example, you might have started out as a 501c3 with 3 board members, 2 members of your senior leadership team, and some volunteers, and you were dedicated to a particular mission. But things change, the landscape evolves, and you've expanded your board of directors, you've expanded your staff, you're relying less on volunteers, and you might need to change as a result of that what your governing documents say and amend them to better reflect the current structure of your organization. Your mission may also have expanded, which is great. The needs in the social change movement and the climate movement are ever evolving. But again, you might now need to take a look at your bylaws, your articles of incorporation, your handbooks or any internal materials, and make sure that they all accurately reflect your structure and your mission as it stands right now. So that's something that TrustLaw is very, very well placed to help you with and could match you with pro bono counsel to examine if your current legal structure is the most appropriate. If you're a 501c3, should you be conversely registered as a B corporation or vice versa? If you're registered as a for-profit entity, would you be better served by registering as a 501c3? Are your articles of association or your constitution or your bylaws up to date? Do they reflect your board structure, your staff structure, your leadership structure? Do they reflect your current mission? And are everybody's roles and responsibilities clearly defined? And if not, if you need to update those, we can match you with counsel to help as well, or to review as well if you've already done an update internally on your own. Staff and recruitment, employment law is another big area where there are a lot of complex questions. You might be employing a mix of employees, volunteers, interns, consultants. You probably have HR policies and staff handbooks, and you probably engage in employment contracts or consultancy contracts. So some things to think about. Is your HR handbook up to date? Are all of your policies up to date, especially in light of things that have changed with COVID and hybrid or fully remote working environments? Does your policy on remote work need to be updated? Do your employee or consultant contracts need to be updated? Do you have an employee handbook that needs to be updated? If you're employing people in different states, are you in compliance? Or if you're employing people internationally, are you in compliance with the employment, with requirements of employers in all of the jurisdictions in which you are employing full-time staff or consultants? That might be something you would like to review with an attorney, or if you've already maybe done an update of your staff handbook or your HR policies or your employment or consultancy contracts recently, would you like an attorney to review them to make sure everything is in compliance? I see a question in the chat that's very quick. Can you match us with an employment attorney familiar with California law? We do have a very big network in the United States, including in California, so we can absolutely try to do so. We do always like to say that we cannot guarantee a match. There are instances in which we can't match you on any given project, and we would have to know the project parameters a little better. But very broadly speaking, yes, you would be welcome to submit, and we would do our best to match you with somebody familiar with employment law in California. So those are all questions you might want to think about in terms of your HR and employment law and whether you would benefit from speaking with an attorney or reviewing existing documents with an attorney. We also get a lot of questions around branding and intellectual property. You probably have produced documents, resources, maybe you have a logo, you have videos or film, and you want to make sure you're protecting it adequately. You might have other original resources or works that you want to make sure are being protected adequately. Would you benefit from speaking to an attorney to ensure that you have filed all the correct documentation or patents to ensure that that is happening? Definitely something to think about and something to maybe review if you've already done so, but it was a while ago, might be worth reviewing with an attorney to make sure you have all of the correct patents or other documentation in place to make sure that your name, your logo, or any written audio or visual materials that you've produced or will be producing in the future are adequately protected as your intellectual property. Contracts and policies. This kind of speaks to if you work with an external partner organization. I believe there was a question in the chat around reviewing or drafting an MOU. Yes, again, I don't want to guarantee anything because there is always a chance we can't find a match, though we do match the vast majority of our projects. But if you're looking for help drafting an MOU with an external partner, or you'd like to review an MOU with an external partner, that is an example of a question you might want to think about, as well as an example of a project that you might want to seek pro bono assistance through TrustLaw for. Another question we get often are your data privacy policies, especially in the European Union, but also elsewhere, up to date. That's a very complex area of law that is ever evolving, especially lately. Are your website terms and conditions up to date? Are any products that you distributing or any services that you're providing, do you need a particular contract or policy in place to govern those and how they're used, or any liability around them? So again, these are really good things to think about in terms of maybe you have an existing partnership in place with an external organization that you're looking to amend, or do you think you might need to amend in the future? Do you need help reviewing grant documents or grant letters to ensure you're in compliance with different donor requirements? Are you in compliance, especially if you're collecting data? Is the way you use it or store it or even collect it in compliance with data privacy laws in every jurisdiction in which you work? You might work in the United States, Europe, and different countries in Africa or Asia, and the data privacy requirements are going to be different in all of them. So it would be worth connecting with attorneys, in different jurisdictions to ensure that you're up to date and in compliance everywhere that you're operating. Or if you're considering expanding and want to know the data privacy, for example, the data privacy landscape in a new country or new region, before you go ahead and take that leap, that's something to think about and maybe get pro bono counsel to advise you on beforehand. And finally, we come to everybody's favorite topic of taxes and finance. So this is a bit of a tricky area, as trust law cannot help with pure tax filing. That would be something that falls under the purview of an accountant. But perhaps you have funding agreements and you want to make sure you're in compliance with relevant tax law in the different jurisdictions in which you're receiving funding. Do you want to have maybe a lawyer review those grant agreements or those contracts to make sure you are? Do you understand your different financing options or need help with drafting investment documents? Have you recently reviewed your corporate structure and filings? These are all things that you might want to consider if you have those needs, seeking assistance through TrustLaw for. So now that I've taken you through some different questions, and I know I'm talking a lot at you, I hope that this is helpful information. And again, there will be time for questions, but some examples of advisory projects. An example that falls under that employment law category, an international digital rights organization that is headquartered in New York City wanted some help reviewing and updating remote work employment policies in multiple U.S. states. So they were employing people who, because of COVID and this new remote and hybrid work reality that we're all living in, they suddenly had employees spread out between different states, and each state has different requirements for employers. So they needed to make sure they were in compliance with all of them. This is a pretty new but frequent dilemma or frequent question that a lot of organizations, nonprofit and for-profit alike, are facing. So we were able to connect them with pro bono counsel to review their policies and review the law in each relevant state and help them determine whether they were in compliance or not, and if not, where those gaps were and how they can remedy them. Another example is falls under corporate or charity law. There was a nonprofit organization, again, based in the United States, as I know most, if not all of you are, working to increase professional and social inclusion for youth facing poverty, and they needed to understand better their eligibility for different government grants and whether they could send that grant funding to member organizations and maintain their tax-exempt status. So we were able to connect them with pro bono counsel familiar with tax law and familiar with different regulations around government grants, and help them make sure they were in compliance with all of those grant requirements, and help them suss out whether they were able to get that money to and get funding to member organizations as well. And then under intellectual property, another U.S. nonprofit, they were building tech products to help people with disabilities, specifically from non-English speaking backgrounds, access 911, and they needed help protecting the intellectual property of their website and the content on their app. So we were able to match them with pro bono counsel to help them make sure that the content of their website and the content of their app were protected and could not be used by a third party that was not associated with them. So those are just some examples of legal advice that we were able to match our current TrustLaw members with pro bono counsel to get some help with and to resolve. So that second bucket is legal research. And legal research is something that comes into play if you carry out advocacy activities, if you're campaigning at the state, national, or even international level to change legislation or regulatory frameworks. If you're looking to find out if you're losing out on business, or you're not able to do business adequately or work adequately because of an unclear regulatory framework or unclear laws. This is something that a legal research project, if we connect you to a law firm in your relevant jurisdiction, can help you figure out. Legal research projects are often used to inform or bolster advocacy activities and can be used as an internal learning resource for your staff and your volunteers, or it can be an external resource that you make available to your community and your stakeholders, or to the public in general, just as an educational resource. So one example of a research project that we're very proud of, we were able to support an organization called Equality Now that focuses on gender justice and women and girls around the world. We were able to connect them with a law firm that helped them to develop a a document on online sexual exploitation and abuse of women and girls, and where gaps in existing legal and regulatory frameworks exist that are preventing victims and survivors from accessing legal resources or accessing legal recourse, and where gaps in laws and regulatory frameworks might be preventing the prosecution of perpetrators of online sexual abuse and exploitation. Obviously, internet usage has increased dramatically over the past 30, 40 years. And with that, online sexual abuse and exploitation, particularly of vulnerable populations, such as women and girls, has also increased exponentially. But laws and regulatory frameworks have not kept up. And in many cases, there are not effective mechanisms in place to hold perpetrators accountable, given these crimes happen across borders and do not happen in person, but over the internet. So Equality Now wanted to explore what the existing frameworks in a specific set of countries were that would offer any legal recourse to victims or survivors or allow for the prosecution of perpetrators, and figure out where the gaps in those legal and regulatory frameworks were so that they could start to come up with a plan and engage in advocacy to bridge those gaps and provide justice and recourse to victims and survivors. So they approached TrustLaw to do a research project or to match them with pro bono counsel on a research project that would explore all of that. And we were able to match them with several of our outstanding legal partners listed here to produce a research report that they now use to engage in advocacy with both at the national level with different governments and at the international level at the United Nations to push for more robust regulation of online sexual exploitation and abuse and ensure that perpetrators can be held to account. And some of the countries that this project explored were Kenya, Nigeria, the United States, India, and the United Kingdom. So these projects truly can be multi-jurisdictional. They can focus on one state in the United States, they can focus on multiple states, or they can focus on multiple countries, even across different continents. And we're very proud that they have really, to say that they have taken this guide and really used it to make meaningful, impactful change. And this was able to help them with that and help them further their mission. And we hope that, we can help you with similar projects if you are thinking of engaging in advocacy and, really would like help doing legal research to bolster your case. And a second example is more of an educational resource. So it's what we call a Know Your Rights Guide. And it was produced in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, when journalists were covering protests and finding that they were being confronted by police, either with violence or with demands to turn over phones, camera equipment, things of that nature, and they didn't know what their rights were in that situation. So TrustLaw partnered with the Committee to Protect Journalists, and we were able to match with our wonderful legal partner, Allen and Overy, to do some research into exactly what the rights of journalists are when covering a protest and put them into a guide that really empowers them to understand if they are approached or confronted by police when covering a protest, what instructions they have to comply with, what instructions they do not have to comply with, and in general, what they should do in that situation. And again, just help them do the work by taking that burden off of them and letting them know exactly what legally they can expect or should expect if confronted with a situation like that. And since that guide was a success, we went on to partner with CPJ on a guide in Canada and a guide in India as well. So just two examples of the many research projects. And we do have an online resource hub that brings together all of the public-facing research projects, because again, they can be private as well, and that would be entirely your choice as an organization. But we have an online resource hub that brings together all of the public-facing projects we've supported on that I can happily send to Samina. Samina, if you wouldn't mind circulating that so people can have a little look around the website as well. So we do now come to the topic of certain legal issues that TrustLaw cannot offer support or connect you with pro bono support for. One is what we call advocacy on behalf of organizations or individuals, but what we mean by that is actually representing you in court. Unfortunately, we cannot match you with a lawyer who will actually be your legal representative in a dispute, in a matter of litigation, or in a courtroom, though we can match you with counsel who can do background research if you're worried about liability in a specific area. There is a possibility, depending on the project, we can do that. They cannot actually represent you. We cannot help with requests for pro bono assistance on behalf of a third party. So, for example, if you are a TrustLaw member and you have a partner organization that's not, we would not be able to take a request from you on behalf of that partner organization. We will, however, gladly talk with them about joining the TrustLaw network if you want to refer them to us. And if they were to become a member as well, that would be great. Again, we can't help with litigation or any really kind of dispute or disagreement. If, say, you were facing a lawsuit, unfortunately, that's not something TrustLaw is able to offer support for. And we're also not able to offer support for direct immigration matters, such as visa applications or advice regarding sponsoring an employee or anything to do with work permits or visas for employees. Any kind of administrative or tax issue that is not related to a legal question. So for, again, example, filing taxes, that's something that an accountant would do. It doesn't really fall under the realm of legal advice. Unfortunately, not something we can match you with. And we do like to caution everybody that it takes a minimum of 1 month for us to match you with pro bono counsel, and it can take longer. So as much as we understand that emergencies and urgent matters come up all the time, we are not placed to help you with them. We are very, very well suited to helping you with things that are in the longer short term, the midterm, or maybe in the longer term, but can't help with anything that is urgent and would need attention within less than 1 month kind of lead up time. And we can't help with translating documents. You would need to, if you have documents that are not in the working language of the jurisdiction that you need legal assistance in, you would need to find an outside translator to help with those. Now the good news. If you want to become a member of TrustLaw, our membership is free. We will never, ever ask you for any money. It is free to apply, free to join, free to use, always free. If somebody is asking you for money, they are not us. And applying for membership is, we like to think, a relatively short, painless process. It is done via an online application. And I've said this several times, but if you decide to fill out that application and you run into any questions, you will have my email at the end of this. Please always feel free to reach out to me or refer partner organizations that might be interested in applying to me as well. But you will fill out a short online application. I believe we have already circulated that. I could be wrong, but if not, Samina, again, if we could circulate that, that would be great. It's going to first ask you to do a short quiz to help you determine if you meet our eligibility criteria, which we already kind of talked through. You'll then submit it. It will come to us. Specifically, it will come to me, and we will process your application within 2 to 4 weeks. I would leave 4 weeks on the long end, but we do try to get to everybody within 2 weeks, if not that, within 4 weeks. And if we have any questions, we get in touch with you via email. Otherwise, we just review, take a look, and hopefully say, yes, welcome. We are very, very happy that you are our newest member. And once you do become a member of the TrustLaw Network, that is when you can start posting requests for support and start getting connected with pro bono legal counsel, which is, I will now take you through how that works. So we have an online portal that once you become a member, we will get you and as many colleagues in your organization as you want set up with accounts on. You log in. When you first join, you will get an automated email prompting you to log in and set a permanent password for the first time. Again, always available to troubleshoot, but we like to think it's a relatively painless process. When you want to post your first request for support or any request thereafter, you simply log in, click on the button entitled New Request. You put in a very short description of the project, what your legal needs are, what the jurisdiction or jurisdictions are, and what timeline you're hoping for. You then click submit. Our program coordinator has a quick review of it, and you book a call with a TrustLaw lawyer. So this is somebody who is a member of TrustLaw staff who will have a call with you, talk to you about the request in more detail, put it into more detailed, standardized language that we call that process scoping, and then post it online in our portal that is available to our legal members. We then leave some weeks for them to review the project, put together what we call a bid, which is essentially an offer of support that will detail what their expertise is, obviously who they are, and why they would like to or feel they are well placed to support you in that project. All offers that we receive, we send to you to review, and you will ultimately pick the law firm or law firms that you work with. Some of the more detailed research projects do involve more than one law firm. Advisory projects tend to involve only one. You will then pick the offer that you would like to go with, and you will let us know. Once you accept the offer, that's an official match, and we will introduce you to the law firm via email. And from there, we will check in with you, and we will be available to answer questions or help troubleshoot if necessary. We'll reach out to you for feedback periodically, but you will really get to drive the relationship. You and the law firm will get to work together to determine what that looks like in terms of timeline. You will already have kind of stated what deliverables you want by that point, and we're always there to support, but generally we found that it works best if you and the law firm work together directly to define exactly how that engagement goes. So this is just kind of an example of what you will see when you log into the TrustLaw portal. You'll be able to see any pending requests that you currently have. You'll be able to see what needs your attention. You will be able to view those offers of assistance from law firms in the portal, and you'll be able to submit a new request as well. So these are some of our eligibility criteria. We've talked about kind of the things we can't support on in terms of project types, but this is our criteria for organizations that want to join TrustLaw. So you must be incorporated or registered either as a 501c3, or if you're registered as a for-profit entity, whatever your legal status is, we would need you to be officially registered or incorporated for a minimum of 12 months at the time you're applying to join TrustLaw. We require that you do not discriminate. I'm sure that goes without saying, but we do just have to say it. That you be apolitical in the sense that you are not that you're not affiliated or the arm of a particular government or political party. If you receive government grants, we do not consider that being a part of a government, but apolitical in the sense that you're not a government entity or the arm of a political party. Deborah, yes, you can absolutely apply, and you are eligible for TrustLaw if you are with a fiscal sponsor. We also do require that you be non-proselytizing. We do work with faith-based groups. We love to work with faith-based groups when they're engaged in really positive social change work, but you cannot be engaged in promoting any one particular faith. It would have to be something that is open to everybody of all faiths, and perhaps you're just motivated to do your work by a particular faith tradition, or you're interested in exploring all faith traditions. You must be working towards a social mission that seeks to address social, humanitarian, or environmental challenges. And you must be able to clearly communicate to us what your objectives are, what your goals are, who your constituents or your community or your beneficiaries are, what your strategy is, and kind of what your programming looks like. How do you operate or work toward your social mission? We do ask that you be able to share at least one annual report or comparable material, such as pitch decks that provide all of that information in detail. And if you are a for-profit entity, so a social enterprise, we do require that you be reinvesting the majority of your profits into your social mission, and that you are clearly stating that on some kind of public-facing material like your website or an annual report or a brochure. We do ask that you be able to demonstrate that you are financially sustainable in the short term. So for a period of 12 months from the time you're applying, and that you be self-governing in the sense that you have a board of directors on which at least one member is not employed by your organization or the family member of somebody who is, and that they are meeting with the frequency that is required by your particular jurisdiction. So that's all. We will happily take questions now. I'm just gonna turn it back over to Samina, and I hope that was not overwhelming.
Great. No, this has been great. And let me just go back to the question slide for now. This has been great. And please continue to add your questions into the chat box if we haven't had a chance to answer them. I'm sending the chats to Livia afterwards. And just so you know, we will be sending an email afterwards with all of the resources, the great resources that Livia has mentioned, along with her email address. So I just wanted to go through, we have some great questions. Justine has asked, do you have a limit to how many project requests we can enter?
Apologies, I was on mute. Great question, thank you for that. So you can have up to 3 project requests active in our portal that we are seeking support for you on at one time. Say you have 4 projects that you'd like pro bono support for, you can input the first 3 into the portal, and then once we match you, make an official match for you with pro bono counsel on one, you can then submit that 4th one, if that makes sense. So while we can only be looking for pro bono support on 3 projects at a time, once you're matched, you can theoretically have as many going as you would like.
Okay, and we have a few folks who just wanted a reminder, which countries do you actually help with? That you are obviously global, but are you operational in India, for instance?
Yes, we are operational in India. There is a short list of countries that we cannot work in due to international sanctions and similar situations, including, North Korea, Russia, Iran. I can look up the full list. If I can look up the full list and send that via email later if that's of interest. But apart from that, we have a very large and robust global network with teams in Asia, Africa, North America, Latin America, pretty much everywhere except Antarctica.
Great.
Daisy,
and it looks like Daisy, yeah.
I see you're asking if we can work in Afghanistan. I honestly do not know the answer to that. My colleague Emma is here. Emma, if you know the answer, if you could put it in the chat, that would be great. My strong guess is no, we cannot work in Afghanistan, but we can support research or questions on Afghanistan, about Afghanistan.
And we have a few folks also asking, instead of a pitch deck, would our recent IRS Form 990 work?
So unfortunately, no. You are welcome to submit that as evidence of your financial sustainability, but we do require an annual report, a pitch deck, or some other comparable material that details your programming, your work, and your impact.
Okay.
Adrian, I see you're asking about a brochure. It would really depend on the level of detail in the brochure.
And Jody's asking, do you assist with partnership agreements and also trademark registration?
Broadly speaking, yes. Again, I don't want to guarantee anything until we've seen the specific project, but broadly speaking, yes, that sounds like something that would be eligible for pro bono support via TrustLaw.
And Adrian is asking, can you help if someone stole your name brand, even if you have a registered trademark?
I do believe that we have had requests like that in the past, and to be transparent, they have been a little more difficult to find support for. That being said, we can try to find you help for that.
Okay. Any other questions? Some of these are a little bit more specific, but we do have a good question. Kim has asked, could you please clarify the constraints on religious affiliation or spreading religion? Just the question on the application she was asking.
Sure. So if you are actively engaged in proselytizing or trying to convert people to a specific faith, that would be a disqualifier. Or if you require people to participate in faith-based programming in order to access other services. So for instance, if you require people to attend prayer meetings, irrespective of what faith they are for, if you're requiring people to attend prayer meetings in order to access food or medical services, that would be a disqualifier. Or if you are actively trying to promote a specific faith over others, that would be a disqualifier. That said, if you are doing charitable work or you have a social mission that you are motivated by a faith by your faith tradition for, but you are not requiring that people participate in your faith tradition, nor are you actively trying to spread your faith tradition. You simply are motivated by it because it's a part of who you are, and that is why you do the work that you do. That is wonderful. Many of our members, a good number of our members, fall under that category, and you would absolutely be a welcome part of the TrustLaw network, provided you meet all of our other eligibility criteria.
Okay, and Daisy's asking, can you review entertainment contracts?
Do you know, I'm honestly not sure. So again, I believe my colleague Emma is here. Emma, if you know the answer to that and want to put it in the chat, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, if you would like to follow up with me, Daisy, via email, I can get an answer for you.
Poor Emma, we're asking a lot of her. Eric is actually asking, can you explain what is actually involved with the pitch deck?
So a pitch deck in and of itself is not required. It's just, I just want to put that at the outset. It's just one of the options in terms of providing us with a piece of material that provides details on your programming, you know, what your organization does in an attempt to achieve its social mission, and on what impact you're hoping to have, and what impact you have had to date, as well as your current financial state. A pitch deck is basically a PowerPoint presentation that talks a bit about what your organization does, why you do it, what your mission is, what goals you're hoping to achieve, and what impact you've made to date in making progress toward those goals. I hope that makes sense. But again, you don't have to put together a pitch deck specifically. It can be an annual report, or if you have a very, very detailed brochure, that would be another example of an acceptable piece of material.
And it looks like Emma has joined in. She has said contract review should fall within the scope of the service.
Thank you, Emma.
It looks like the rest, I haven't, if you have any last minute questions, please add them now. And like I said, you will definitely get Livia's contact info afterwards. So please continue to submit them. I did want to, first of all, thank TrustLaw, just in general. I know, Emma, you're part of TrustLaw, for being such a great partner. And then Livia in particular, thank you so much for joining us, sharing all this great information. And then just a little highlight for our next webinar. I hope if you have a chance, please do attend. It is our August 31st webinar will be a good one. It's not like this one is not, but this I think will be really critical for folks. It's called Running Holiday Giving Campaigns with Skilled Volunteer Support. No, it might seem very early to think about holiday giving, but as you all know, it does take time. So please join us. And if you can't make it, also please register, and then you'll get a link to the recording and any resources that we've mentioned during the webinar. Just like with this one, we'd like to give the resources out at least. And on behalf of Taproot, I'd like to give first a huge thank you to Livia Fry. Thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, we'll be sending an email later today, not just with the resources, but recording of the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Samina, and to everybody for coming. It was wonderful to connect with you, and I look forward to connecting with you more in the future.
Great. Thank you, everyone.